guests and visiting Rotarians. Guests here.
There's John. He's visiting
Vanessa Vrtiak. She's a pastoral bureau director. She goes to Berkeley. College, obviously. Goes there. And this is Brian, Miguel Brian. We call him Brian or Miguel, if you want. And he's going to Santa Monica in the fall.
Awesome.
Honored guest here, Mary.
Oh, sure. I brought Mary today. She's
Yay!
not at
Yeah, we have the reoccurring scholarship recipients here. We have Hannah Henry, Brooke Chalker, and Carrie Wolski-Gainer. Right? I don't know. I got the hyphenated names.
Here we have Vanessa Vrtiak. She is the coordinator of the written
Start with announcements. Maggie, you had catch your mouth.
Good time.
Yeah, really. No, I've been taught to talk with my food in my mouth right after, right? I wanted to let everyone know that the trip that we're planning for Guatemala to go build a house is scheduled for February, and we'll give you more information about that soon because we want people to sign up and go. But we are having a fundraiser for that on September 27th. It is a Friday night, having it at the Bayside Community Center, and it is going to be a dinner event. And so with Guatemala themed food, we really need people to step up and help us if they'd like to help with that project, and certainly up go. We need to raise about $10,000. We have a lot of it, but the more we raise, the less those of us who go will have to pay to go. So if you want more information, our committee will be meeting next Tuesday morning at 7:30 at the country store. So on the, that is the 6th, I think. Huh?
What's the house for?
We're working in a community where people without houses are the lowest echelon and treated really badly, so it's for our family.
Are they Guatemalan nationals, or are they a different subgroup or ethnic group? Or?
Charlie would know more about that, and here she comes, but I'm just announcing that about our fundraiser, and he wanted to know about the ethnic, the family.
Is it
we're
like a
building
native?
house.
They're all indigenous.
Okay, that was my question.
Yes, and they
So basically, they treat them badly. They just.
yes, and the other thing that I only know a little bit about, Guatemala has a very strong caste system. These are like the bottom of the caste. And so once they get a house, they really come up like 3 or 4 castes, which allows them access to better jobs and education and health and so on and so forth. And the houses are given to the women. Which is, yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you
Other questions?
for the updates. There's more to come. And wanted to check in. Has who signed up for International Rotary Convention?
Oh, not yet.
Someone's going to Hawaii?
Yeah.
Well, June 6th through 10th, Honolulu 2020. Sounds amazing. So I didn't get a chance to celebrate birthdays last month, so I'm going to mix in June and July. So looks like John, you made it. Wanted to check in and see how your birthday was.
Oh, it was great. My wife Layla and I got married a couple days before my birthday. Her birthday is a few days after. So we always mix it all together and do something fun when we do anything at all. This year we went to Mount Shasta for the weekend fishing and business out there anyway. So my dog and I walked around in the snow on the top of the mountain at 85 degrees, which was really, and it was just beautiful. It was a good week.
Thank you. Looks like somebody else here. Happy birthday. Oh, yeah?
That's because you never show up at meetings.
That's not true. I was here just last time.
Well,
last time he was here.
I'm done.
So another reminder, we have a ballot review of the volunteers. This is a Karen project, so go out and celebrate her and the amazing garden that's out there. Morning.
Morning.
And then a reminder again, fellowship is on August 19th, so coming up, 4 to 6 p.m. And then $1 each district will be donated to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. This to help support that organization this month, kind of tailored to the upcoming event. And Matt, I don't know if you have anything that you'd like to add about the walk.
I have flyers here, but pretty much you can look up there and see what you need. You can go to the website, register. We will need some Rotary volunteers to kind of fill in every year to move this organized. It's always great to have some Rotarians to order around that kind of just go do their thing. Just sign up and participate. You don't have to fundraise if you don't want to. If you want to fundraise, you can. Or if you have a business and you want to be a sponsor, let me know. So I'll kind of get you on the sponsor stuff. And that's it. And where's Romy? Romy's always involved too. Where is she today? Can we call Romy at home on speakerphone and see what she's doing?
I'm sure she's.
Banned, I think. No.
You have the option to be a virtual walker.
Oh yeah, you have an option to be a virtual. I mean, you actually went to the website, which is awesome. You can be a virtual walker, donate, not show up, or show up. It's only a couple hours on a Sunday morning, and I don't know. So call me if you have any questions.
Thank you. And great.
Nice action shot.
Okay, so at the Rotary Park innovation a couple weeks ago, I made a challenge to everybody there to take an action shot, go to the Rotary International Brand Center, and then you can just upload the photo and put it in something like this. And it's first time through was a little challenging. Figured out, but I wanted everybody to do it so we can kind of get the habit of doing this. So I put out a challenge that anybody can take an action shot and goes to the Rotary website and does that, I'll donate $5 to bullying. So, who did it? You? Anybody?
I didn't actually post it. I tried to do it.
But you did, you at least got through the, did you?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can. All right. So, does anybody know somebody who was there that's not there this morning? Doesn't say he was going to, you know,
I think he might have. I did my first time lapse though. I think it was last week. Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
All right. Okay, so Dustin, did you do this? Did you go to the brand center and do that?
So yeah.
Yeah.
Is it the
Will you promise to?
I promise you, I just didn't get the best action photo I thought I could have, so.
Okay, well, it's more about getting into the habit of
Of the process.
the process. Go over the process. Okay, so that's $20.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. And Joyce, got something? Yeah. Just want to offer you a plug for
All right, well,
recognition.
here's the plug. I need to make sure that's the right email address, because I don't want anybody to send it to the wrong spot. But President AJ wants the third, I guess I'm supposed to move on. The third Friday of the month to be the recognition month, or the time. So gather all of your information, send it to me. It's recognitions with an S. So
It's ARCS?
ARCS.
Not RCS.
It's ARCS.
We can't just change that because it won't work.
Dot, and then recognitions. Did I?
Somewhere else.
I
Wow,
mean,
that's
I-
instantaneous.
Yeah, man, he's on it.
All right, perfect. That's it.
Got it.
So if you send it to me, we'll get it all together, we'll get it on the slide, and we'll have a nice presentation. If you can't be here on the third Friday, make a note of that, and we'll figure out something else. Thanks. And I'll send everybody a copy.
All right, Jeff Welch, here's our Rotary Club RCAS Sunriser Memorial Scholarship.
I think that AJ did it. Basically, I want to make sure that everybody has enough time to basically talk, so I'm not going to do very much of this, but this is our scholarship, reoccurring scholarship winners. And I'm going to ask Hannah Henry to come on up and tell us what she's been doing.
All right.
Alright, as Jeff said, my name is Hannah Henry. I just graduated from Arcata High in 2018. This last year, I finished my first year of college in Missouri. I'm going to Lindenwood University, where I am majoring in business administration and management. What else? I was on 2 collegiate cheer teams. I was on a co-ed intermediate team, which is where I got tossed up and did some crazy stuff. And then I also participated in a all-girl stunt team, which is a new sport and it is recognized, which allows scholarships.
What does a stunt team do?
So basically, they give us routines. We learn how to do them, and then we perform side by side against another team. And whoever does the best performance basically wins.
What have you been doing this summer?
I've been working a lot, like a lot. I have 2 jobs. I work at Grocery in Fortuna, and then I also work at Dream Athletics, where I teach little girls and little boys how to tackle. It's cold. I had 4 months of snow, and it was not fun. I do not like the snow. I do. It's a very nice
What's your favorite class so far?
Let's see here. I had lots of awesome classes, but I think my communication class was really fun. I got to learn how to speak to people like you, and I also got to learn how to present myself in different ways in different settings.
I hope you got an A because you're doing really good.
Yeah. Anything else?
What do you want to do with your business education?
I want to be an event coordinator for a big corporation, so basically doing stuff like this where I make the events for the fundraiser.
Party plan. More than that.
Brooke, why don't you come on up, Brooke Chalker?
Hi, my name is Brooke Chalker. I go to HSU. I'm a cellular molecular biology major. I'm thinking about getting a psych minor. I know the notes, but I'm taking a psych class this semester that will kind of determine it. And I'm sorry, I'm so nervous. I do a little bit of work, kind of part-time, nothing like official. I work at a school. I did commencement on and off jobs like campus maybe for like a day or 2. And then I went to Mexico this summer and got to experience traveling for the first time, so it was super exciting.
Where do you go in Mexico?
Guadalajara.
Guadalajara?
Yeah. Guadalajara. And Michoacan.
Oh,
And then Ixtapa. So it was like a 10-hour trip. That's what from family.
oh, no.
I went with my boyfriend's family. They took me to meet the rest of his family, so they had like a long trip.
What do you like about molecular biology?
It's not the light.
Really love understanding of the human body. Because like our systems are so complicated and it's just amazing. That's also partly why I'm interested in psych, because the brain is just so complex. Even though it's like a mushy organ. I wanted to be a biomedical engineer to create artificial organs to cut down on transplant risk.
What year in school are you?
I just finished my second year, so I'll be.
Wow.
Any questions?
What's been the most surprising thing about college so far?
Labs, I gotta say, to be honest. My chem labs were kind of crazy because they kind of explosions.
Totally surprising.
Like, it's different from seeing it on TV and like doing it in real life. This is kind of exciting.
Yeah, great idea.
Any other questions?
I'm Carrie. So first, I wanted to thank you guys all again. This scholarship has helped me focus on school a lot more, but it has also kind of led me in terms to my internship and my job. After I got the scholarship my freshman year, I joined Rotary. And then from Rotary, one of the events we did is we participated in Relay for Life. And I realized that I really wanted to be a bigger part of that, and so I joined Colleges Against Cancer. It's the daughter organization of the American Cancer Society. And my first year doing that, I was the advocacy chair, and then my second, I was the mission, cancer education, and advocacy chair. And so for the past 2 years that I've done that, we raised $50,000 to go towards cancer research and programs that like lodging and rights to treatment. And then from there, I reached out to the American Cancer Society and I got an internship there. And after 2 weeks, they offered me a job. And so for the last 2 years, I've been working there, so I haven't been able to come back. I've been working there for the past 2 summers. It's a May through October job, and so I'm able to focus on school for the rest of the year. And so for the past summer, I have been working there and then starting my grad apps for grad school next year. And then also I've been working on research for my honors thesis. I am studying different levels of colleges in California. So community college, California State University, University of California, and private schools. And I'm studying how the different levels of saliency of the different colleges reflects their LGBT inclusion on campus and their policies and resources. I'm also at Davis, by the way. So yeah, that's what I've kind of been up to.
Nothing much, really.
You guys have any questions?
Where do you go to college?
I go to UC Davis, yeah, but I'm working in Sacramento right now, and so it's about with traffic, it's like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive.
Oh.
Even though it's supposed to be a 15-minute drive.
I used to live there.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
There were just horses and wagons.
Yeah.
There were no wheels.
There were no
Yeah,
no electricity,
Uphill.
there were no roads back then.
Yeah.
What do you want to do when you're out of school?
I'm picking kind of between 2 paths. So I think the last time I talked to you all, I was a biochem major. And since then I kind of realized that I was in it more for what the job could be and not what I really wanted to do with my future. And so I changed to a sociology major, and I'm minoring in sociocultural anthropology. And so I'm focusing on environmental studies mixed with civil studies, so gender, race, economic standing, and the demographics within a city. And so I've really enjoyed working on studying urban environments and how there's the levels of different ghettos and different poverty levels throughout a city, and how what is in each city reflects the poverty levels. And so I took a criminology class last year that actually, one of the things we studied was the effect of coffee shops on poverty and crime. And that was super interesting about how it's actually proven that the more coffee shops there are in a certain location, the less crime there is. And so things like that.
Caffeine is awesome.
Yeah.
More coffee shops.
What was that?
More coffee shops where there's less crime.
That's more coffee. Oh. Yes, because my professor was actually the one who did the study, and they studied over about a 10-year period of as coffee shops came in, they studied the micro level relationships between the different businesses, the people, the local level versus the neighborhood level and the national level, and the results showed that it was actually the effect of the coffee shops on the crime, not vice versa. Yes.
So are you taking classes in like data analytics and data management and statistics and stuff, or?
I've taken a few data statistical classes, but I'm mostly focusing on kind of the relationships between different things. So I'm taking classes like, it's very broad, just like gender, race relations. It's like mixed between, I'll either do 4 classes of anthropology in a quarter or 4 classes of sociology. I haven't really figured out how to fit the classes in where it's one of each, but they're both pretty related. But it's less statistics and more theoretical, I would say.
Well, they're all here. And taking time out and sharing with everybody, really appreciate it. You guys carved out a little time from your schedule and had to travel, so thank you.
Also, as I hear your ventures, and yes, on behalf of the Memorial Fund, I'd like to award you each the $1,500 scholarship. So, Caroline. And Brooke.
Neither I nor McCammon moved that fast.
We missed it all.
You didn't bounce. All right.
So, call Crystal up for the vocational award.
Alright, so you guys know that we've been looking for someone to nominate for the vocational award, and it's really hard to describe, how to nominate someone. We're asking you guys to find someone in our community that holds up the Rotarian values, and that seems like a really broad thing to do. So when Vanessa was nominated, I felt like I knew a lot about her. She's, I've been to her poetry shows, and I know that we both worked in law enforcement, and she worked with reentry for people who are in the Humboldt County Corrections facility, and she brought programs to them like education and parenting classes and job preparedness. She also worked for the Raider Project, which is working with homeless youth, and so I was just like, yeah, this is a great candidate, perfect candidate. And I really realized that I didn't know that much about her because I printed out her CV, and it's incredible. The stuff that she's done within the last 10 years, 11 years, 12 years, she's been going headstrong. So some of the stuff she has done, she's worked with the Grief Crisis team. She was the coordinator of Walk a Mile in Her Shoes. She was a current educator. She's done the Vagina Monologues. She is the board member for Pay It Forward. And so they coordinate supply rooms for families of victims of natural disasters and secure job applications. I just found myself highlighting, underlining, and asterisking everything on her CV. And then I was like, okay, so maybe I don't know her personally, so I should reach out to the community to work with her. So I emailed someone, I said, hey, Vanessa's been nominated for this award. Can you give me some background? She goes, oh yeah, she's like, I can get a few letters for you together. What do you need by? I was like, I don't know, is like a week enough time? She goes, well, how much do you need? I was like, 3. She's like, oh, I can get you those by the end of the hour. So she did. Within 30 minutes, I had 3 letters for Vanessa. So I'm going to just read a couple because after that I got 4 more. So it's pretty impressive. So the first one is, Vanessa puts her whole heart into everything she does. The community is better for having her here. It's a rare gem to meet someone like Vanessa. Someone who always will fight the good fight, no matter how hard it gets. Someone who lives their life, dancing like no one's watching. Someone you know who will legitimately change the world. What an honor it is to call her a friend. Clark Swan, Rotary. Vanessa's resiliency, kindness, creative spirit, and passion for social justice tremendously enhanced the culture of our school, and she challenged me as a leader to find alternatives to meeting unique needs of students. I'm thrilled and extremely proud of her continued support of her community, and thank RCAS Sunrise for the acknowledgement of such a deserving person, Chris Hartley from Humboldt County Superintendent Schools. And I will read one more. So, when Vanessa was 19, she wrote a poem that she wanted to connect communities with righteous love and purpose. And she lives that mission from the very marrow of her poems. And that was from Therese Fitzmaurice, Youth and Family Program Director. So I don't think I really have to say much more. So I would like to invite Vanessa up to accept her award, her vocational award for being an outstanding leader in our community, and also award her with the worst picture ever! we made 2 donations in Vanessa's honor.
Saying something profound.
To a program of her choice, which was Team Court, and then the other one to the College and Career Center at Arcata McKinleyville. In addition to this, we have also awarded her with her Paul Harris Fellowship.
So Paul Harris founded Rotary in 1905, and for about the last slightly less than 100 years, people have donated to the Rotary Foundation, which does a great deal. 4 stars from Charity Navigator for being an organization or charity that gets the money to where it's called, doesn't use it for a lot of administration purposes. So anyway, you are our newest Paul Harris Fellow. To commemorate Paul Harris. Here's a pin, and it's to wear the pin because Rotary Directors will know it.
Oh, good. Well, I'm really honored. Something like this makes you feel like you're dying. Hearing life like that, I'm like, oh my God. I grew up in McKinleyville, and I just never thought that my life would be what it is, and I think I know that I am the person that I am today because people have believed in me, and I know that all of you in this room, that's like one of the hearts and strengths of Rotary. The heart of the matter is believing in others and doing good work in the community, and so I feel just so honored and blessed to have recognition and support from you all. Just really blows my mind. So yeah, when I was a kid, I never thought I'd even go to college. It wasn't even something that I thought about. My family was homeless in this community, and we really struggled. So I started out by volunteering. That was one thing that I did. I started the teen clinic in McKinleyville. A lot of my friends were getting pregnant, and I was like, I want to do something about this. And when I started that in my life, I was like, this is amazing. Like, I've never, that rush that you get when you help people, like, there's nothing like it, just being able to give back to your community. And so over time, I just feel so blessed that I have all these things, I guess, that just stack up. And you don't think about them as you go along, you know, but I'm so grateful. I mean, coming in here today, and that man at the door was like, I saw your TED Talk. I'm just like, oh my God. Oh, it's so amazing. And Laura made that happen. And the recognition from Crystal that even put this out here, like, I'm just so honored and grateful. Thank you all so much, so much.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I might have caught you doing some slam poetry.
Yeah, I have a poetry show that I do the first Thursday of the month at the Siren Zone, and we've done it for about, this is our 14th year. And that was one thing that really changed my life. When I was 18, I got to perform at the Apollo in New York City. And I have 5 books. I feel like I'm like a jerk right now. I'm like, I have 5 books. But that's like, that's like my heart and my heart and soul. Thanks for that. So I've been doing that for a long time. I would read you a poem, but you'd all be depressed afterwards. So I'm not going to do that.
Bring this crowd down.
Thanks again. So let me invite John up to sit up here. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For new folks, visitors, etc., I am
Going on the road.
Wow. Okay. I'm John Gullam. I'm the Donor Recruitment Director for the Northern California Community Blood Bank. To start with kind of the big picture, the Northern California Community Blood Bank is a local nonprofit based in Eureka. We have a volunteer board of directors. We're not part of Red Cross or any huge multi-state blood collection board. So we're based here in Humboldt County. We have about 50 employees and a $5 million a year budget. We serve the local hospitals from Garberville to Crescent City. We collect donations from, we've been to Shelter Cove, not real often, to Smith River. We go out to Willow Creek, Koopa. We go to all of the high schools, HSU, CR. Our business model is that we maintain an inventory that's adequate to serve any of the local hospitals in an emergency, which means we have more blood on hand that actually gets used locally. And so what happens is all blood products have a shelf life. As the blood products near that shelf life, rather than discarding them, we work with hospitals and blood centers in urban areas where they have more patients who can use the products immediately. And which does a couple of things. It ensures that almost none of the donations get wasted. We'll find a patient somewhere who needs your donation. So when you donate to us, it'll go to the local hospitals if it's needed. If it's not needed, it'll go somewhere. We work a lot with Stanford. We ship at least once a week products to Stanford where they get used immediately. The shelf life for different components, plasma can be frozen and it can be kept for up to a year. Red blood cells last for 56 days and platelets last for 5 days. One of the biggest issues we're facing right now is that the need for red blood cells plateaued about 5 years ago. Surgeons have found ways to use fewer red cells while doing surgeries. The need for platelets has continued to grow. They're used for cancer treatments. They're finding new uses for platelets all the time. Platelets are the component of your blood that causes clotting. The issue is that a 450 milliliter donation of whole blood contains about 100 milliliters of platelets. So the ratio of platelets, plasma, and red cells in a unit of whole blood is not the ratio that they're needed. So we have folks like Tom who come in and donate platelets. It's a little longer process than donating whole blood. Your blood goes into a machine where it's centrifuged, separated into 3 components, and depending on your blood type, current patient need, you'll receive some of the components back. You may also receive some saline back, so you actually lose less volume in apheresis than whole blood. what that allows us to do is if you're type B patients can receive O or B red cells. So there's seldom a shortage of type B red cells. So we can keep your platelets, you can get your red cells back, and we're not over collecting those red cells. This allows us to make sure that we're collecting in the same ratio the patients need them, and they're not going to waste. I'm not sure, some of you may have seen, we had a big event on Wednesday called Battle of the Badges. We had 16 different law enforcement agencies come to the blood bank over the course of the day. We saw 180 people. That's the most people we've seen in a day. The local law enforcement community has embraced this drive, and it's been very successful. This was the second year. Last year we saw 75 folks, so it's really grown. One of the great things about this drive is the timing. During the summer, folks are on vacation, they're busy after work, they're not going to the blood bank, they're going to the beach. So summer is one of our most difficult collection times. So they've agreed to position the drive at the end of July so that we can help meet that need. The other time is right after New Year's. Traditionally, most blood centers have a real hard time collecting enough products during the Christmas season, during the holiday season. We've been pushing so hard on our donors to meet that need that we kind of pushed that problem into January. So after the first of the year, everybody's exhausted. Start with Thanksgiving, and we actually do a big drive in Crescent City every Halloween. So starting October 31st and going through New Year's, everybody's so busy, and we're hammering on them to come in and donate, that January 1st, everybody just wants to go home because it's dark. So January and July are our biggest times for need. We have 3 blood mobiles that are somewhere in the community 5 days a week. We collect whole blood, again, from Garberville to Smith River, now to Willow Creek. We have a number of locations where we do mobile apheresis. We actually have one of the machines on one of our blood mobiles. So you can make an appointment for that. There's a pre-qualification where we actually count the number of platelets you have in your blood. And that determines how long you're on the machine and if you're a good candidate. There's absolutely no predictor of who's going to have a high platelet count. So one of the things we've done is try to get platelet counts on all of our donors and then contact them if they might be a good candidate for apheresis and talk to them about doing that. It's our community blood bank. That's one of the things we're really pushing this year is that the idea of where do you think the blood comes from. A lot of folks don't think about blood at all, but 1 in 7 people who enter the hospital use blood. Red cells, platelets, plasma. And again, they all outdate. So platelets with a 5-day shelf life, as you know if you've ever tried to leave or return to Humboldt County, we have to plan on a day and a half to get test results before we can release a blood product. If we're not going to use it locally and it has to be sent somewhere, we need a day and a half to get it somewhere, which means it's sitting on the shelf waiting to be used by a local patient for about 48 hours. But within that 48 hours, that's when the platelet needs to be used, or it needs to be sent somewhere so it's not discarded. So we constantly need platelet donations. We're actually doing platelets 6 days a week now to ensure that we have enough. We maintain a larger inventory than most blood centers. Most blood centers maintain a 3-day inventory. We maintain a 10-day inventory because, again, if we run short, we've got to get hold of somebody who's got to get blood products here, which can take a day and a half. So we have an unusually large inventory for our size, but that's because when we look at an average 10-day inventory, that's ridiculous. There's no such thing as an average day. What we have to do is maintain enough for a peak, and so the average usages down here somewhere, but if you get in a traffic accident and you're bleeding, it doesn't matter what the average usage is in a day, there has to be enough. So, Battle of the Badges is great because it gets a bunch of people in. One of the things that we really need to impress upon people is that you're not going to know until it's too late that we need you to donate blood. If you hear about a traffic accident and there are people hospitalized and bleeding, by the time you hear about it, those people have already received blood. Now our refrigerator's empty and we need to refill it. But if everybody comes in that day and donates, that's great, it refills our inventory. None of those people are eligible to donate whole blood again for another 8 weeks. We're gonna need blood next week, the week after, and the week after that. Our dream would be if everybody in Humboldt County 4 times a year decided to give blood on whatever schedule works for them and did it whether they heard about a need or not. Because there's going to be a need, and again, you're not gonna know that there's a big need until those patients have been treated and received blood products. So we like to say that the most precious donation is the one that's on the shelf when the patient needs it.
Hey, John, just a question for you. How do we find out where the blood mobiles are going to be out and about?
nccbb.org. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a Snapchat account, but I haven't figured out how it works yet. One of the things that we ask of community members is to sponsor blood drives. One of the most efficient ways that we can collect blood on our blood mobiles is if we go to a business who has employees who are interested in donating, signed up throughout the day, and we can go, we know that we're going to see a certain number of people. Many of our blood drives are, all of our whole blood drives and donations at our center are drop-in. You don't need an appointment to donate whole blood. With apheresis, because there are a limited number of machines, we need you to make an appointment. But with whole blood, we drop in anytime. If we're there and we're open, come on in. Many of our drives are wild berries. We're there twice a month. Arcata Safeway, we drive, we set up, people come in. We do pretty well with people that we know about. Once you're on our phone list, you're going to hear from us. If you're type O negative, you're going to hear from us a lot. But we don't buy phone lists. We don't pick up the phone book and start calling random people. The only way we know about you is if you walk onto a bloodmobile, donate, and then we've got you. But first-time donors are a huge need that we have. With baby boomers getting older, starting to take medications, losing their hair, taking Propecia, there are a variety of medications that will make you ineligible to donate. We need about 2,500 first-time donors a year to offset the number of people who become ineligible. Humboldt County's population hasn't changed significantly in the last 20 years. Obviously, some people move, new people come in, but we've got, for all intents and purposes, a finite pool of people to draw from. So we need folks that do donate a little more often, and we need folks who've never tried to give it a shot. The highest compliment we can receive was, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. We love to hear that, because we're going to stab you with a needle. It's not necessarily...
Oh, way to sell it.
But they give you juice, right?
And there's
Juice,
blood involved,
cookies,
right?
yeah,
Right,
and
by
there's
definition.
blood. Yeah.
So is there an age range, like you have to be 18 and you can't be 80 or something like that?
16 with parental consent. There's no upper age limit. As long as you're well and healthy and not taking any of the medications on the list. On the website, under qualifications, there's a list of medications that you'll be deferred for. Check the list. It's seemingly random. There are blood pressure medications that thin your blood. which affect the platelets, so you can't donate. The blood pressure medication I take makes your veins swell up. It doesn't impact the blood at all, so you're not deferred. So one condition, one medication you're deferred, another you're not. So don't assume that if you're taking something for hair loss, you're going to be deferred. But check the list. And if you've checked it before, check it again. Things do change. Unfortunately, things get added more easily than they get removed. But check. We talk to people every day who misunderstand deferral criteria. We need to do a better job of getting out there and letting people know that if you had a tattoo more than a month ago and it's healed, you can donate. You don't have to wait a year anymore. California, if it was done in a California licensed facility. California now inspects tattoo facilities, so you're not going to get hepatitis. You were never going to get hepatitis, but because tattoo shops weren't regulated, they weren't inspected, we had to wait a year to see if you had hepatitis. Now that they're inspected and all use, by law, use single-use needles, you only have to wait a month before you can donate. I talked to somebody I've known for 20 years who said, oh, I can't donate, I was in the Peace Corps, I was in Africa 20 years ago.
What does that mean?
Nothing. There are travel deferrals. If you spent a certain amount of time in Europe in the 90s, you might have mad cow disease. So we might defer you. Malaria, we need to defer you for a year if you've been to a place that's endemic with malaria. Those two things are because when we test your blood, we don't test your blood for a virus. We test your blood for the antibodies that your body creates to fight the virus. Because finding a virus in a small tube of blood, there might not be virus there, but there might be virus in your blood system. But your body creates antibodies to fight it, so that's what we're looking for. Malaria is a parasite, so your body doesn't create antibodies to it. So the parasite would actually have to be in that sample tube, which isn't going to happen. So we have to wait a year, because if you've got malaria, you're going to know it in a year. Variant Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, or mad cow, is something called a prion, and it's not a virus. So there aren't antibodies to test for. And they've had people who were exposed 40 years ago, I think now is the longest, who become symptomatic with mad cow disease. So until they discover a test, folks who were in the military or lived in Europe in the 90s, when mad cow disease was rampant in Europe. During the 90s, the U.S. military bought all of its beef and lamb from the United Kingdom. So even if you were in the Mediterranean, your meat came from England, which is where the mad cow disease was. So you have to be deferred. But that's less than 1% of the population needs to be deferred for those reasons. The largest number of deferrals are for low hematocrit, low iron scores. That's very common. We're regulated by the FDA. They determine all of our screening criteria. And in order to make a rule, they have to have a number. So they pick a number, and if your hematocrit is below that number, you don't have enough iron to donate. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong. You can have a high hematocrit or a low hematocrit, and if it's always at that level, it's normal. We don't have any way of knowing what your hematocrit has been for the last year, so we can't determine what's normal. They probably wouldn't allow us the latitude to determine anything anyway. They want a number.
Has
So
the FDA
they pick-
fixed that test that shows the false positive Hep C yet?
No. There is a number of people, a huge number of people, were tested for hepatitis when there was a test that tested for hepatitis B and C. There's now a test for hepatitis B, there still isn't a test for hepatitis C. So you may or may not have hepatitis C. Very often, there'll be a false positive. With many tests, you can come in, be tested again, and when it's proved that you don't have the disease, you can be re-entered and donate again. With the hepatitis test, blood donors are the only ones who need this test. So none of the pharmaceutical companies are going to bother creating a test unless there's some other reason or the government funds development of a test. The testing companies are all for-profit businesses. When there's a huge need for a test, they'll develop a test. So there are exceptions where you are probably eligible and you can't donate.
20 years. Because I was regular with.
One of the issues that we deal with through our regulation is that the FDA's mandate is to allow nothing that makes the blood supply less safe. And so they can add additional rules pretty easily. A new medication comes out and goes on the list. If there's any indication that it might interfere with a blood transfusion. Getting things off the list is much more difficult because if the answer is we don't think it'll create a problem in a patient, that's good enough to get it on the list. We'd have to prove 0 risk to get something taken off the list. And so it's just a recruitment problem. We just need to recruit more donors. That's the answer to everything. Just recruit more donors. So first-time donors, if you've never donated, know somebody who has never donated, get them to walk onto a bloodmobile. One of the things we hear most often on our annual satisfaction survey is that it's fun. We have staff who like their job. We have staff who are miserable and have bad days. If you've gotten one of those people on one of those days, I apologize. Please try it again. As strongly as we worded the personnel policy, people do have bad days. We actually have in a personnel policy that there are no bad hair days. But if you've had a poor experience in the past, please give us another try. So I see the.
So I think that, AJ, we should organize a competition between the Rotary.
I was thinking that too.
Have blood drive, like the battle of the badges. the
But
battle
each of them
the-
donates like a different month, and then we tally it 6 months later. So
Yeah.
like, this is your month, right? So
Yeah.
let's spread it out.
Although,
Everybody gets.
although if they're already donors, they may not get
just
to do it.
What if you give them 6 months?
But I think
We
we
don't,
should
we,
do it.
well, we
should
could,
Come up
figure
with
it out.
something.
yeah, there are a number of ways we could do it. We could have a month that's designated for a club, but at the end of a year, we count everybody who came in from that club. So encourage people during a month, but if somebody's going to donate throughout the year, then great. We're also doing something right now, where we're encouraging people to donate twice this summer. We're going to have a drawing at the end of, beginning of September, and anybody who's donated twice between June 1st and August 31st will be in the pool. We'll draw tickets. We've got Matica tickets and pie and gift cards. So if you donated once this summer and you're eligible again, come back here.
John, how do you determine referral due to surgery?
If you've received a transfusion or a bone or skin graft, you need to wait a year, but then you're eligible after a year. Cancer is another, if it's a blood cancer like leukemia, you'll be deferred for life. But most cancers, solid cell cancers, once you're cancer-free for a year, you're eligible to donate. Again, if you're assuming that you can't donate, check the website, give us a call, talk to a nurse, and with travel, one of the things that the CDC has actually gotten a lot better about is there's malaria in the Yucatan, but not in Baja, and Mexico used to be a deferral zone for malaria. They've now broken it down by state. And there are actually maps with overlays where you can look at, I went to Ecuador. I happened to go to the jungle, so I was deferred. But the place most people go, the city where you go to then go to the Galapagos, there's no malaria there. It used to be that if you went to Ecuador, you were deferred. Now it breaks it down geographically. The Panama Canal is probably my favorite. Mosquitoes aren't allowed on cruise ships. So if you go through the Panama Canal on a cruise ship, you're not deferred, but if you get off the cruise ship.
There's a sign.
Again, yeah.
No mosquito.
Well, mosquitoes don't want to be in those.
This is our cue.
Again, the FAA, I bought a drone, so I'm reading all this FAA stuff. The FDA has to make rules that have numbers, because that's how they do things. So there are things there are lines that may or may not make sense, but actually figuring out what goes where is too complicated. So again, if you think you're deferred, give us a call. If you've never donated, most people, something like 85% of people when asked, say that the finger prick to get a drop of blood to test your iron hurts more than the needle going into your arm. So,
Yeah, it's that.
so worry about that. But that doesn't, I mean, the needles are really sharp, so.
That's a good thing, that's a good thing.
Yes.
You had me, you totally blew it though.
We can dull up a needle for you if you want. Any questions?
I did have a question. Can you prepare diet-wise going into
The more hydrated you are, the better. So drink some water beforehand. If you've eaten, you're going to have less of a tendency to get lightheaded. So have some food ahead of time. If you haven't eaten all day, our staff will make you go have a muffin. You'll be forced to eat a muffin. But drink some water ahead of time. Again, the more hydrated you are, the plumper your veins are, and the easier they are to stick. So.
Can I either else real quick, or are we gonna do it next week? Do it real quick? Okay, I just, 072, anybody have 072?
Whoever bought theirs right after me.
I do.
And the other one is 067, so 072 and 067. We got 072.
Wow.
Table one.
Wow, we're down.
Yeah, we're down there.
Flags here.
Yeah, it's $100. You get 5 of Cal, bring your 5 over. And then who got 067? All right, there we go.
Terry.
Sorry. Dollar on the table, sorry.
Wow.
So Steve won $4.
Happy Friday.